Jessica LaRusso from Workplace Education Manitoba, and I'd like to invite you to Tuesday Tidbits. Before I introduce our instructor today, I'd like to go over some features. On the top of your screen, you'll see three icons: a smile emoji, a question mark in a blue box, and a telephone. The emoji will open up a variety of expressions that you can use to tell the instructor how you feel or when she would like you to give her feedback. The question mark is for when you'd like to ask questions, and the telephone is there for when you need it. There's also a chat box where I put two support links for you so that you're able to, if you do run into trouble, you can look at those. But on top of that, I've included my email address and my telephone number. And for those who are on the telephone, my email address is jlorusso@wem.mb.ca. And for texting only, don't phone me, it's 204-770-4864. Those two, the email and the telephone, is for you if you need information, if you're having trouble connecting, something's going on. I am checking it often so that I can help you through the webinar. Now, we only have 30 minutes today, so I just quickly want to introduce our instructor, and I am so very thrilled to learn from Rochelle Amy. She's been in teaching and education since the year 2000, has a plethora of valuable information for you. She works out of the West Center in the Interlake and has been with Workplace Education Manitoba since 2019. I'm so very excited to learn from her today. And Rochelle, you have the screen. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. If you're out there in internet lands, shoot us an emoji. Tell us how you're feeling today. We're glad you're here. I'm so thankful you signed up for today's webinar because coaching and mentoring touches us all, right? We either do the coaching and mentoring or we've been coached and mentored. And sometimes we've been undercoached or overcoached in maybe a negative way. And yet there have been coaches in our lives who've absolutely changed our lives. So we want to talk about those today. Just to point out, we're joining together from all over Manitoba because Workplace Education Manitoba has a reach right across the province with learning centers all around. And we do want to thank our funders. ERSDC and Manitoba Education and Training are the ones who helped make this possible today for you. I want to dive in to talking about the best coach. And before I start all the talking, I want you to do some talking. Can you share with me in the chat box over to the left side of your screen some of the attributes or reasons why your best coach you ever had was the best coach? What is it about them that made them great? Now, there might be certain adjectives that come to mind or actions. Pop those up for me and tell me what it is you loved about your best coach. So this could be coach, mentor, sometimes colleagues, employers, and wow, incredible words. I hope you're all watching those roll up the side there. Inspirational, listening, fair, yeah, and explaining things. Inspiring, a good example, yeah, leading by example, good golly, isn't that the truth? Ones who pay attention and are appreciative and give us worth for the work we're doing, absolutely. You guys nailed it, and I hope that as you've experienced those things yourself, those are things that you in turn are learning to pay attention to and sharpen in your own set of tools when you coach and when you mentor others. Now, show me with an emoji if you recognize this fellow right here. He goes by the name Mike O'Shea. He may or may not be a local coach. Does he look familiar to you? Well, I know we have a lot of hockey fans in this province, but we sure have a lot of football fans too. And I thought it was so cool. I've been following Coach O'Shea for a few years because he was a record-setting player when he played football himself. And then when Winnipeg got him as the coach for the Blue Bombers, there was just something about his coaching style that caught my eye. And I started watching him and what he did. And of course, we know that he led the Bombers to the championship last year. So Under his leadership, he formed the team and coached the team and got them to the place where they won the championship, which is not a small thing. I don't think we had won it in something like over 20 years. So, not a small feat. But one thing that stands out for me is before we won the Grey Cup, there was a story that ran about Coach O'Shea in the Winnipeg Free Press, and I'll never forget it. It was a picture of him working in the stadium, and his players were interviewed, and the players said about him, what most people don't know about why we're so loyal to Coach O'Shea is not for what he does on the field, it's for what he does after the games and what he does after the practices. And when it's time to load equipment and load it on a bus or an airplane or get us to a shuttle somewhere, it's actually Coach O'Shea who shows up and cleans out the dressing room and gets everything loaded up. So these players had lots of technical things to say about his play and his skills, but they really went to his character. And we want to touch on that today. We're going to talk a little bit about character, and then we're going to talk about some real practical skills on how you can evaluate the people you coach to figure out how to make a good connection with them. Now, any coach or mentor obviously wants to be there, right? They want to be coaching and mentoring. At least, hopefully that's the case. You may have inherited a few mentorees just by the way your company works. But at the end of the day, you're probably in that role and inputting into people's lives because you have some desire to see them grow and accomplish. And it's got to be intrinsic in you as a coach and a mentor. You have to have the want to, I want to do this, the willingness to take pride in what you do. And probably the most challenging thing is to develop the skills to back it up. Because what usually happens with promotion is we get good at one job and then we get promoted into a place of leadership. And the skills that we needed for that original job are not the identical skills that we need as a leader. So constantly upskilling and constantly working on our repertoire of leadership skills is part of the key to having a little bit of credibility to back up the platform that you're in and the leading that you're doing. It's such a delicate balance, right? Because a coach gives so much correction, he gives so much motivation, and she gives so much feedback. And to be able to do that in a way that doesn't cause resentment and anger is so tricky. And we've seen athletic coaches are always a great example of this because we don't get to see inside everybody's offices, but we do get to see on a national stage what athletes are doing. And this key of being able to get into someone's heart without breaking their spirit or causing resentment, this is so critical to your coaching. It takes self-awareness, it takes understanding what your coaching skills are, and it takes a responsiveness. Your ability to respond to and mutually engage in communication with the people you're leading is part of the key. Often coaches or mentors think that it's a one-way thing, that they're smart in some way or have skills in some way, or they have a need, something has to get done. And so they're giving a one-way piece of communication as directions. But really the coach and the mentor, they're actually a teacher who's engaging in a learning process and trying to figure out what is it this person needs to learn and how can I help get them there. The responsiveness piece, the way that you'll be able to engage in that with people is whether or not they feel they can approach you. And it's so funny. Most coaches and mentors feel they are approachable. They would say, oh yeah, I have an open door policy. Absolutely. An open door policy, I feel like that should just be burned and thrown into the dump because it's so oversaid, it's so overplayed, and it's not very well executed. So you could go ahead and tell your employees you have an open door policy, but actually how they feel you're interacting with them is different from how often you think you allow yourself to have meetings scheduled. And body language in this is huge, recognizing that your position is positional. And so even changing your body stature to reach people is an incredible tool you can use. obviously the coach is like the one doing the heavy lifting. He is pulling the cart uphill. She is being the cheerleader. They are the ones digging in and generating a certain enthusiasm, because your teammates, the ones you're leading, they might have a passion for a particular part of their job that isn't the part you need, right? Why do people show up to work? Because that paycheck shows up every 2 weeks, right? Not a lot of people come just to volunteer. So they might be enthusiastic about getting paid. They might be enthusiastic about going for lunch with their coworkers. But you as the coach and the mentor, you're the one pulling the cart, being the one to say, this is why we're excited about this project, and this is how we can make a difference in the work that we do, whatever the industry is that we're in. One of the most fun things I've seen a sports coach do was for one of my children's hockey teams. And they pushed these kids and they made them a promise. And they said at this practice, if you will do these things, which were like some really hard drills and some really intense working out, if you'll do these things, we have a surprise for you at the end of the practice. Now, these kids were little at the time, so this worked well. But they said at the end of the practice, they're like, okay, everyone, it's our surprise. We're going to play this game. And all the coaches laid on the ice and flailed their arms and legs and sticks out. And it was sort of like tag, where the coaches were frozen to the ice. So they couldn't move, and the students had to find a way to navigate through them. Well, it was so phenomenal, because since the coaches could use this humor and play this silly game that you would never see on a national stage for training, but because they could do that and get all of their athletes laughing and engaged, those kids, they showed up every other time that coach asked them to reach and dig in and find that inner motivation and work harder. They could do that because they knew that there was always offset with, even if something's hard or even if we fail, we're gonna find something in this that we can laugh at. Don't underestimate how much that means. Sincerity and honesty is so critical. People can see right through the lines. They know when you're faking it. And honestly, sometimes you have to fake it, right? Maybe there's a financial issue and you have to fake it because upper management's telling you one thing and those underneath you don't know all of the backstory. So being able to find your voice of sincerity and honesty, even when you can't divulge all the company issues that are going on, this is something that actually takes intention and it takes practice. And you need to practice this on the people that are the hardest to get along with. It's so easy to be sincere with the people you like, but the ones who are a little more challenging, they're the ones to really work with. I don't know if you've heard of this coach, David Belial, but Little League World Series, this is a thing. It's a big thing for these kids where they go to this world championship to play baseball. And this guy got famous because when his team lost, and they lost by 1 run, unbelievable game. They lost by 1 run, and as his athletes were just broken over it because they came so far with all this hype and with the whole country watching, his speech went viral. And he talked to them about how it was a great season and so on. But he was able to summarize it for them, saying, of all the things that hit him emotionally, it was recognizing that maybe it's sad that this is the end of our run as a baseball team, because they were all aging out of that division. But we're gonna still be friends. And he talks about that in his coach. Now, you may not be able to be friends with all of the people that you coach and mentor. I'm not saying everyone needs to come over for the backyard barbecue. However, the sincerity and honesty that you carry as a coach and mentor can be life-changing for people when they know that you see them not just as the robot who swings the bat or writes the memo or makes the catering meal successful, but when you see them as a human and understand that the interaction you've had at this moment in life has the potential to carry on in other capacities. Being able to be adaptive is huge. If you've read leadership books over the last 2 decades, you know that there's like a million principles about good leaders. And I feel like the new era we're coming into is really about being adaptable. And we've learned that, of course, right now in the current crisis going on in our nation and our world, right? We're learning about how being adaptable is actually the key to success, because in that case, we're adapting not only to what our trainees need from us, but from what the world and the environment around us is demanding. Tolerance is key, and this is one to sort of take a note on and work it out on your own. What does that look like for you? Is that about just recognizing differences? Is that just about recognizing there's other opinions? Or is it about you practicing the tools to know what's happening to your face when someone's saying something you don't agree with? What's happening to your body language? What happens to your blood pressure? Do you have coping tools to figure out how to tolerate so that you can push through to that next level of leadership with the people that you're coaching and that you're mentoring through? I love the idea of commitment for coaches, because you know the good coach is the one who beats their team there and stays after their team leaves. And the whole concept of whether you're committed to the cause or not absolutely rubs off on the team that you're coaching. There's just no question that those you lead are going to put in as much as they see you put in, or at least a measure of it, but they're rarely, almost never, going to put in more, because the coach usually stands more to gain, right? If we're talking about the workplace, maybe the leader coach or the manager coach, maybe you get paid more than other people. Maybe you get more holidays than other people. And so your trainees recognize that you already have some benefits out there. So what they're really looking for is, what's your commitment to the cause? Are you asking me to do something that you wouldn't do yourself? And we see over and over how good leaders go in with a level of commitment that is second to none. We learned this during 9/11, right? The mayor of New York was in hot water politically, and then when the tragedy happened, he dropped everything he was doing politically and he went right to ground zero. He actually was in danger because the explosions and so on hadn't stopped yet at the point that he was there. But he said, I am here and I am staying here until this is done. And so being able to transition and recognize, I not only have to lead my people through this, but if anyone has skin in the game, it's me, and I have to show and dedicate my commitment and upskill. So if I had the emoji on my screen, I would give it to you guys for attending today, for listening today, for being the one to read the title of this webinar and go, wow, coaching and mentoring and being effective in it. Yes, thank you for that, because that's how I feel about you all attending. It's saying, hey, I'm committed to the cause. I see people as more than robots. And I see that some people were gracious with me. They invested in me. They taught me. They were committed to me. And now in turn, I have to figure out those skills and pass them back to the team that I'm working with. So knowing not only what's happened in my life and what have I learned and harvested from good coaches and not so good coaches is one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is recognizing, who's my actual team? Who is it I'm leading? Who is it I'm mentoring? Who are those people? Well, we all have different learning styles. I encourage you to find out your own. You need to know your own learning style, because we look at other people through our own style. We think, if I'm a visual learner, I'll just teach in a way that other visual learners can learn, and we forget there's other ways. So it's important, first of all, to know what kind of learner you are, but then to also recognize other people aren't motivated, inspired, and engaged by the same things you are. So visual learners, they can see maps and pictures and flows. They can see what things look like by maybe reading instructions or reading policies. They write their to-do lists. They love to map things out and work it out. They would do a rough draft of something before they finalize it. They can see it and picture it. Let's have a look at that. Give me time to visualize that. A visual learner is very different from an auditory learner. Auditory learners, if you're not one of them, can be people that frustrate you, because you might be giving visual learning, painting different methods and tools for people to use that are all visual, and maybe you have some auditory learners in your group where they're the ones who need time to talk and process. They want to listen. They sometimes give you the side eye where they're looking out of the corner of their eye because they're going over all of what's coming into them through their ears, and they're processing that before they can process anything verbally or before they can say it out and map it out on paper. They're the ones who want to hear it and digest it. And sometimes it can look like they're working slow, but actually they have a capacity to be a lot more efficient because they're sometimes not wasting time on all of the practicing things out, but they've taken time to think about it and learn it. And if this is your style, recognizing that you may be this way and can appreciate the phone conversations and so on, but other learners that you work with and are trying to motivate, if they're not wired this way, they might resent long phone calls. They might resent all these different tools that work for you. Even sort of the Zoom fatigue, right? Like if your group aren't auditory learners, they may not want to be tied to learning how to do things online or watching videos. They might actually want to interact and have those conversations. So it's so critical to know where are you coming from and where are they at, and what does your work environment allow you to do? Now, kinesthetic learners are super fun people because they learn by touching it, by doing it, and they almost can feel their way through. Remember when some people who are visually impaired, they've described for us how they get to learn people's personalities. And one of the ways is they touch their faces and they feel the shape and the contour of someone's face. And it paints this picture for them. By using their hands, they can actually visualize and have a connection with somebody who they've heard. Well, kinesthetic learners are similar to this. By putting their hands on, by touching it, by doing it, by saying, let's not even talk about it. Let me swing the hammer first and figure out what goes wrong. Maybe I'll bend the nail. Maybe I'll miss the target. Maybe I'll hit my thumb. But just let me swing the hammer first, and then let's talk about how it all works. Now, that's not to say that there's no place for safety training and protocol training. Of course there is, absolutely. But recognizing some kinesthetic learners want to touch it. Now, if you're in the trades, you might have a lot of these people. They might be in the trades because they learned that working with their hands ignites a passion in them because things make sense when they can touch it. Things make sense when they can do it. So with these people, a lot of the learning that you can do some hands-on coaching, learning, team building stuff where they actually get to try it and they get to do it. And they have a great creative capacity too. So looking to people like this to improve systems is key. If you're the visual learner and you just like to read that policy manual and map it out, you might be boring people to tears. It might be your kinesthetic learners who are the ones who actually know how to improve the system because they can touch it and feel it and do it and rework it. So giving them experiment time, giving them budgets that support this so that they can be innovative. It's so critical to keeping that passion alive in them as a learner. Doesn't this coach just inspire you to all get out? Probably not, right? We see this a lot. And it's such a funny picture because at first glance, it actually seems terrible. I don't want someone up in my grill screaming like that. But recognizing, hey, maybe there's a learning style component where maybe this coach actually knows something about this player. And maybe they are motivated by different types of verbal things. Now, I would never suggest verbal abuse or screaming in someone's face. Not a great technique usually to get people motivated. But really recognizing I'm trying to do something and my learner's trying to do something. How do we need to connect? What's our common ground? Do they have to become the me kind of learner, or can I go to them with where they're at and teach them in a way that they can engage? And if you find yourself feeling this frustration, we've all felt this frustration. If you find yourself feeling this frustration, It's a little bit of like looking in the mirror. Sometimes it's them, sometimes it's us, and recognizing maybe the same strategy isn't working every time. It's not a one size fits all type of solutions, but who am I and what kind of learner are they? When we consider what does it take to be an expert coach, because it's all on the line with you, right? If you can't get your employees and coworkers and mentorees engaged, how are you going to reach that next goal in the workplace? So putting some onus on yourself to say, how can I beef up my strengths? How can I take this to the next level? Well, you need your own goals, and you need data that backs them up, not just picking random goals, but knowing why you're getting there, knowing how am I going to deliver this? What's my access to my people? And then how will we assess the project and tweak on any things that can be fixed to make it profitable or efficient or better the next time? And that includes recovery periods also. Giving feedback is an interesting concept. We have the picture of the microphone here because feedback can be great, and feedback can be that screechy sound when a microphone is too close to a speaker. Have you heard that sound? Sometimes coaches sound like that kind of feedback, and I know that's not you, but part of giving healthy feedback is recognizing that feedback's rooted in relationship and not just results. It is a skill. You do have to practice it. Practice it with your family and people who will be honest with you about how you are with feedback. If you're in a high-stakes, safety-conscious environment, knowing that you're giving feedback that's completely accurate and has all the facts related to it is so critical. Knowing that you're giving it for the right reasons and not selfish reasons, that you just need to talk or you just need to be heard, or heaven forbid, you just need to be right. But giving the information and feedback that actually benefits the team and causes something inspirational in them. Knowing when to give it, knowing to do it on time, and knowing to keep it focused to the topic at hand is so critical, and it's so tempting to deviate from this. So if this doesn't come naturally to you, you have to write this down. If you know you're going to have a conversation, you better get that into a few bullet points and know exactly which event, incident, or project you're talking about, and know when the right time is to give it to someone. Now, if it's a traumatic situation, obviously you're not going to give feedback in the moments right after a traumatic event, or in the recovery period right after your team pulled off a big, huge accomplishment. You'll give it some resting time, but you're not going to let it go a year. You're not going to go back a year from now and say, hey, remember that time this happened? Let's learn from that. That's not timely. So really being able to jot those down and figuring out a map, when does it work for my employee? Are they always stressed out when they get to the office because they have a bunch of little kids and getting everyone to daycare was horrible for them? Maybe they're the one I'll give feedback to after lunch, not at the 9 a.m. meeting. Or recognizing the different environments. Do they work in a cubicle setting and everyone can hear? Maybe I won't chat with them in front of everyone else. Really getting to the point and not just sandwiching it between all these nice things like, hey, I really love your new shoes, and by the way, you really screwed up on this project. That's not helpful, right? Resist the temptation to just be all sugar-coaty and cute about it and dancing around it. Nobody has time for that, and they definitely don't feel respected when you do that. So being able to go to the point and keeping it about the point and not the person, right? We're not giving feedback to tear someone down. We're giving feedback to inspire them. We're giving feedback so that the next thing we do happens in a better way or in a more efficient way. And we might be in an industry that's directly related to safety concerns like our image, but don't underestimate what that looks like in your other environments also. Making it descriptive, knowing how you've evaluated and what the measurements are, those are critical. So people should know already in advance how you're going to evaluate them later. Is it in the sports analogy? Is it that they just win the game, or is it how they win it? So have we laid that out, and then are we giving the feedback to them based on the truth and based on the facts? And have we had that rapport with people already so that when we're talking about the tough stuff, it doesn't derail them? Now, this is a sample of the type of leadership training we do at Workplace Education Manitoba. We'd love you to be able to join us for other events and webinars we do. And we thank you for being here today. And my hope for your takeaway today is that you leave understanding a little bit more about who you are and what motivates you as a coach and what your learning styles are. And then just really thinking into the space of how can I inspire and how can I create synergy on this team around me by using these tools. And I hope you'll join us in the future for other webinars and workshops that we're offering. We thank you for being here. Have a great rest of the day.
Wow, Rochelle, that's wonderful. I really appreciate your information today. And thank you to the participants for giving us your comments and your applause as well. Again, give Rochelle, Amy, applause or thumbs up. She's done an amazing job today, and I'm so glad to learn from her. I look forward to seeing you in the next workshops, and I wish you a wonderful day. Thank you so very much.